Yo, what up, nerds? It's the weekend, which means it's time for a brand new anime streaming showcase. We are still in the summer of A.S.S. I think I could get in 1 to 2 more episodes of that before we have to call it quits on this year's summer of A.S.S., the first of hopefully many. And this week I'm going to look at a show that has been one of my personal favorites and is one of those shows that just sort of gets tossed around as a good entry show for a lot of people or a welcoming back show for people who maybe have stepped away from anime for a while. And we're going to look at JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Specifically, we're just going to look at the very first series, which covers part 1 and part 2 of the manga. So we're going to hop into it and let's just enjoy this bizarre series. You know those things on Twitter that people share around? It's like, name top 5 anime, 5 anime that you could live without or couldn't live without, things like that. So every so often I see threads or posts like that asking, like, what's a good anime? Or I don't watch many anime, or I haven't watched in a while. What's something good that's just going to scratch that itch? And more often than not, there are many immediate offerings my mind starts thinking up. I never wish to overwhelm someone with a series that's more than 26 to 50 episodes because that's a lot to ask of someone. And most US shows typically run the average 20 episodes, maybe 25 a season, but the series most people recommend these days are AMC shows or HBO shows like Breaking Bad, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. These shows, they have something in common, and that they average about 10 episodes a season usually. And given that they are usually hour long or 45 minutes in the case of TV times due to commercials, splitting them up could essentially make them 26 episode seasons regardless, but it's often the award-winning US TV shows that are often raved about, and those are less time-intensive shows. Now I know I'm rambling, but there is a method to all of this madness. That is just the modicum of what populates in my mind when someone asks the question of what's a good anime. The too long didn't read of all of this preface is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fits this category perfectly, and especially in its first series that encompasses the manga's first 2 parts, Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency. Nail it. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, both the anime and the manga, focus on the Joestar legacy. Each story focuses on one of the Joestar family and various characters they know and meet and grow the plot to defeat the villain. The manga is a 30-year-old series with currently 8 parts dedicated to many different arcs and stories building the complete Bizarre Adventure. This particular anime adventure is the beginning of Joseph Joestar's many stories and looks first at his grandfather and the origin of the Joestar-Dio Brando rivalry that will rage many generations and centuries future and past. JoJo starts a little slower than other shonen series one might be used to, but once it starts getting truly bizarre, it really never lets up and is a continuous assault of action, muscly men, and varying occult themes and villains to populate the world. Phantom Blood's Jonathan Joestar is a well-to-do child who soon earns an adopted brother in Dio Brando. The two develop an instant rivalry, seemingly playful at first, but before long Dio aims to usurp the Joestar fortune, so Jonathan acts to prevent Dio from doing so. It's these first 9 episodes of the first series that introduce the world of Joestars, Hamon, the mystical art that strengthens and enables fantastical feats, the stone mask and its vampiric and even zanier elements that the series becomes known for. Phantom Blood is a marvelous introduction to the series, but honestly, if you're not feeling it by the end of the first part, you might want to walk away, as it is the most grounded the series will ever be, and with Battle Tendency and series beyond, the bizarreness, pun intended, truly takes hold and helps create Hirohiko Araki's series becoming a phenomenon. With Jonathan Joestar's story told in Phantom Blood, we jump nearly 50 years later to Joseph Joestar, perhaps the most prominent character in the entire series, who's the grandson of Jonathan into Phantom Blood series. But it's quickly thrust into the same, now even more brutal world his grandfather and Dio helped usher in. More world building and character depth is explored in this particular part, as we learn more of the Stone Mask, Dio, and the odd pillar men that aim to become completely immortal. Joseph Joestar's journey takes him across the world to battle and strengthen himself further, and helps his character grow over the course of the remaining 16 episodes of the series. We carefully learn more of Hamon and the brutality of the Pillar Man and why they must be defeated. This is where the true over-the-top nature of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure comes in and it garners its audience. In its initial inception of being a shonen series, ass-pull attacks and wild fights were bound to be a staple, but Araki also institutes bits of mind game and intelligence into his fights more often than not. Brute strength does typically ultimately win the day in the end, but there's a charm to the fights that spans the entire run. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was always a series I had heard about from way back when I started getting into manga and anime. Unfortunately, until the last few years, the series was relatively difficult to find, legally or otherwise. Thankfully, production studio David Productions have delivered in creating an astoundingly cool show in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that reeks of the manga's late 80s style while maintaining a modern sensibility. Colors pop, sounds eject and hover on screen in three-dimensional effects, and blood flows like a fountain from many different parts of the body. David Productions' team worked hard to ensure that the integrity and particular style of the manga's art made it into the show. Seeing bodies contort to pose in order to strike the inarticulate stances the characters often make in the manga, to witnessing the weight of impact of a strikes upon one's body, there's a detail attached to JoJo many action shows miss. Slight hesitation from strikes that seemingly freeze and then immediately launch a person across a room, or the dynamic lines that outline urgent strikes. They are apparent and they accentuate rather than distract. Style is the name of the game here, and JoJo grabs for gold every time. Meanwhile, as the visuals are outstanding, so is the auditory side in every aspect. Cracks, rips, whoosh, you name a sound effect, and the audio team with JoJo went above and beyond to ensure every effect lasted. I can't recall ever hearing any familiar sound effects I'd heard a dozen times elsewhere, anywhere. These sounds seemed incredibly unique and distinct for JoJo. As for the dialogue and the dubbing, I have not actually heard the English dubbing jobs for JoJo, but I haven't heard anything jarring or bad about them either. Given the general presentation though, I hardly think you can go wrong with either option. Viz Media have been doing a fantastic job with a number of their series lately, so I think it's safe to assume they're not hurting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in their dubbing. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a show that I will offer up as a series for those wanting to check out varying degrees of anime. And if you can get past the absurd, violent moments, you can find a colorful, creative series that is as entertaining as it is fun. It's not exactly a mindless action show, and it offers up memorable battles wrapped in a beautiful package. But I must warn you, JoJo is not a kid-friendly show, and it's quite comical to think this is initially ran in a shonen magazine in the 80s. That's a young boys magazine. Of course, series like Fist of the North Star also ran concurrently with JoJo. So there was a precedent for macho men bloodily pounding other macho men into pulps. Man, Shonen Jump certainly has changed in the last 30 years. Whether JoJo is printed in a shonen or seinen magazine is fruitless to the beauty that is the anime. It's often brutal and so bloody that it was heavily censored in the TV airings, but the home media offerings show every gory detail, so worry not, hardcore fans. And if you do enjoy what the first series of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has to offer and want more, the sequel series, Stardust Crusaders and Diamond is Unbreakable, parts 3 and 4 respectively, are also available via the same sources. These parts are often considered the two more popular in the series run, and they crank the zaniness up to 11. Introducing the idea of stands, nearly every character has a psychic embodiment that manifests itself and assists the user. They help launch battles into another level, as well as provide the series' humor and comic relief. If I'm going to get a bit personal and a bit critical, while I did enjoy Stardust, Crusaders, and Diamond is Unbreakable as more fun JoJo goodness, the episodes would fall into a Monster of the Week scenario that ultimately killed momentum for me. Diamond is Unbreakable was less guilty of this sin, but Stardust Crusaders could have shaved maybe 5 to 10 episodes off of its run with limited time spent on these types of episodes. They're hardly deal breakers though, and I'm simply one opinion in a sea of thousands. But if you're not a fan of similar shows or ideas, those two can grate on you after a while. In the end, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an adrenaline-fueled action show, and it's so ludicrously over the top and wacky that it's hard not to enjoy it. If you don't mind gratuitous violence and you're in the mood for intelligent battles, give it a shot. You can find it streaming at all the usual places: Hulu, Crunchyroll, Viz Media, even Adult Swim offered on their sites. But again, I cannot speak to the quality of their dubbing nor their streaming, and I think with Adult Swim you also have to have a cable subscription, which is kind of annoying. Anyway, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure lives up to its name in every way, and its legacy is cemented thanks to David Productions and their marvelous anime series. Boom! There you have it. Brand new episode of A.S.S. It's all in your face! Go watch some JoJo Bizarre Adventure. It is such a cool show. It is so over-the-top ridiculous, and as the name suggests, it's bizarre, but it's so fun. Do not look past it. It's fantastic. It's so good. Meanwhile, it's the weekend, and the weather has gotten a lot better, and I'm going to go enjoy it. Actually, I'm probably just going to play video games. We'll see. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, as always, for watching. Thank you, as always, for the Laser Time crew for allowing me to put my ass on their website. And if I want to plug one more thing, every Friday I do something called Fire Pro Fridays, which I take Fire Pro Wrestling World. It's a Steam game. It's also going to be on PS4, or it is on PS4. I don't know. Anyway, I play it on Steam. And what I do is I just go through and do like custom wrestlers and created wrestlers and just sort of pit them against one another. I do an episode every week. I've got a couple scheduled. There's a backlog now that if you'd like to check it out, you're more than welcome to. They're fun, and I'm going to actually work on eventually getting into doing like faux announcing on it, because I've had some people say this would be better with commentating, and I do want to do that. I just don't have the time for it. All I have to do right now is just set it up, play the match, and record it, and it's so easy, and I just upload that, pretty much a raw file, and it's good to go. The audio side would take a little bit more time, and I just need to find time to do stuff like that, and I do want to do it, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoy it. As always, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time, and that's it. Bye, nerds.